Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being with us for Lifetime's Adoption 101 webinar, Q&A for Future Adoptive Parents. My name is Kim King, and I'm one of the coordinators here at Lifetime, and I'm also co-hosting with Libby Denniston, another one of Lifetime's coordinators, and we are excited to spend some time with you today and answer the questions that are on your mind. Before we dive into those questions and answers, let's go ahead and just share a little bit about how you can reach out to Lifetime, get connected, get plugged in. Of course, our main website is LifetimeAdoption.com. You may have also come across some of our other websites. We do have many websites and a strong online presence, and our mothership, so to speak, is LifetimeAdoption.com. You'll find tons of Q&A, lots of information about the process, a whole section for birth mothers, a whole section for adoptive parents, lots of great information there, so hopefully you're enjoying the website. You can also fill out our free application online at lifetimeadoption.com/apply, and this is a really great first step to opening the conversation with Lifetime Adoption. It does not obligate you to anything. It just means that you're saying, hey, we're here and I'm considering adoption, and here's a little bit about me, and here's a little bit about what I'm hoping to find in adoption, and then we can take a look through that and answer questions according to what your adoption needs and circumstances are, and really tailor fit the information for where you are in your process and the things that are important to you in your adoption. So please do feel free to fill that out, lifetimeadoption.com/apply. Never too soon to apply. And we will give you a call, text, or email and let you know when we've received that and are starting to process it and everything. Keep an eye on your inbox, because we do send you an email with additional information once you have submitted that application online. It will come to you automatically within, I think, under 10 minutes. So if you don't see that in your inbox, be sure to check your junk mail or spam folder and put Lifetime Adoption on your safe list so you do get all of our information correspondence. And also follow us on Facebook. That's at facebook.com/open.adoption. facebook.com/open.adoption, and we are also, of course, on Instagram, and you can find us by just typing in Lifetime Adoption Center, and you will find Lifetime Adoption there. Lots of great encouragement, conversation. I know on our Facebook page, we do Facebook Lives on a regular basis, so that is a really great way to, like I said before, get plugged in, start to get to know the staff, get to know us as your adoption professional, and type in your questions. And there's just a great community, very supportive and encouraging on our social media. You can also call 1-800-923-6784, and we are happy to speak with you one-on-one and answer specific questions to your circumstances, something that might be a little more private or personal in nature. You can definitely call us, and we are happy to help with anything that you need. If you do not already have a coordinator, you can email adopt@lifetimeadoption.com. You can request information that way. You can share about yourself that way. You can also fill out an inquiry form on our website at lifetimeadoption.com and request information be sent to you if you'd like to start out that way. So whichever way you first reach out to us, we're happy to hear from you. We have a million ways. We use a lot of
really
technology here at Lifetime.
I was even thinking now
Anyway.
people text us too. So
yes, we sure
you
do.
can also message through Facebook or Instagram. Yeah. Basically what Kim is trying to say is please reach out. We are totally approachable and want to help you get the answers you need, because we know it's a lot to think about, and we know there's a lot of information to digest, especially in the beginning. So thank you so much, Kim, for running through that. I even popped in a little bonus one there that said if you're looking for webinar replays, you can go to adoptionwebinar.com. So if you can't get enough of your webinar tonight, you can hop over there and listen to even more of them later, or throughout the week, or this weekend, whatever suits. So but you mentioned we're calling tonight's webinar Adoption 101 Q&A, and this is really because we are going to talk about a lot of common topics that come up, especially as you're starting to research adopting a child. In fact, I was really excited because a sweet woman that called last night just very beginning of starting to learn more about adopting a baby. I see her name popped up here right now, and she started out last night just saying, I asked her, well, how did you find her number? And she said, this is just really overwhelming. And so I Googled and you popped up. And I immediately thought, that's what tonight's webinar is about. This is about um, taking what feels overwhelming and maybe helping you organize your questions into categories or just check off some of those questions. But really what we want you to know, like Kim listed off all those ways to reach out, is that we do everything we can to make it less complicated and to help you get answers step by step. And that's really our heart, is whether on both sides of an adoption, we are working with individuals to help sort through all of the deep and complex steps and thoughts and real experiences, very personal experiences going on with birth parents or adopting parents, and we guide you through to uncomplicate it and to take a very serious process and hopefully also turn it into something that feels possible and it feels lighter and it feels like something you're going to get through and look back on and smile, not something that you will look back on and cry or wish you did it differently. So that's really what we're about, is making sure that you are equipped. So the questions that came in, Kim, I think will be great to start us off, but I wanted to say that if you're listening right now and you're on the app or you're online, feel free to type in the questions box. I already see a couple of you are familiar with that, but you can find that questions box, and that is where you will interact with us tonight. So if we're talking about home studies, for example, and you think, I have another question kind of like that while we're on the topic, pop it in and let us know. Or if you have a comment because you have personal experience with a question or a topic that comes up, let us know your feedback in that questions box too. So we will keep our eyes on that. We're pretty good at multitasking and looking over there. But that's how you can participate tonight too. So Kim, I saw a really great question that I don't think a lot of people are brave enough to actually type out, let alone say out loud. And I wanted us to maybe start here because adopting a baby, it's an emotional decision. Most people aren't adopting a baby because they, you know, feel called to some fancy process or a business transaction. They're adopting a baby because they feel led to adoption for various reasons. They want to add a child to their family. But with that comes very real concerns or fears or what ifs. And I love this question because I literally was listening to an author um, earlier today that is an adoptive mom, and she talked about the very same subject. So I know that if there are people out there who have openly shared their adoption stories as adoptive parents, and they can look back and say, yeah, I also can tell you I'm on this side now, and I can tell you adoption's amazing, but I had to start over here with this same question. This woman submitted a question that said, do people ever worry that they won't love the baby they adopt like they know they would a biological child? And does having that fear mean adoption may not be right for them? So Kim, you work with a lot of families on that front end with Lifetime, introducing them to Lifetime, just even equipping them to choose the right path for their future adoption. But how do you move families through that very real fear and concern as they're just deciding, is adoption for me?
Of course, they're not going to know how they're going to feel until they have that baby in their arms.
Mm-hmm.
But I think adoptive parents that have shared. So when we interview adoptive parents on webinars, and
Mm-hmm.
they've already adopted, and they express that they had this question personally, and maybe shared it, maybe didn't, but they had this question, this kind of, it was kind of weighing on them. Will I love this child as much as a biological child, or will I love this child as much as my biological child I'm already parenting? But they always say they can't see it as any different. They can't imagine loving a child any more than they love this child.
Mm-hmm.
And I think God always works that out that way. I think that's a natural concern that adoptive parents have, especially if
Yeah.
they haven't felt that love for a child that's non-biologically related.
Well, or I think
Some people
too,
have had,
Kim, I was just going to add to that. I think sometimes too, it may even come from first-time parents where it's sort of assumed, you've been maybe trying with fertility treatments and you've had your mind wrapped around this baby that would look like your husband, and you know that you would love that child. But then when you change the dream a little bit and you are both on the same page about adoption, even someone who's never raised a child is going to move through that and just have to, it's just part of shifting the vision, I think. But you're so right, Kim. I'm so glad you brought up the adoption stories that we've hosted before, because I think those are the best testimonies to squash this fear.
yes. And when adoptive parents have maybe been parented by a step-parent, um, or were adopted by a step-parent, they often tell me, like, I know that adoption creates a bond just as strong as a biological bond because I feel that love toward my dad and he's not biologically related to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or Marty makes the example of your spouse. You love your spouse. You're dedicated to that relationship. You are family and you've made that commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And you love your spouse and they are not biologically related to you either.
That's
Another
good.
thing to think about too is that often people, like I mentioned, who are already parenting and they love that first baby so much, they can't imagine loving a next child as much, even if adoption is not part of the scenario. Parents, either way, I think, kind of mention that. But yeah, I think it's something to ask the Lord to ease that fear, put that in God's hands, and drive forward toward your adoption, knowing He's going to bring that baby perfectly in His will and timing to you into your arms.
Right.
And you are going to have that overwhelming feeling toward that child that, especially when it comes time that there's no one else around. And you are the parents. You are mom and dad. Your child is relying on you for every need. The way we're built is that we feel that connection with that child. And
Right.
if the concern is coming from a deeper place, maybe if the person has struggled with feeling connections with people, feeling connections with parents, maybe some counseling would be a good thing too. I'm not saying this person is struggling with that,
Right.
but for people listening in general,
Sure.
Pre-adoption counseling is a good thing. I have a few couples that are going through that, and I commend them for just saying, like, hey, we don't have all the answers ourselves, and we know you're an adoption professional, and you're here to support, encourage us, and guide us, but we kind of want to go to like a pre-adoption counseling session and really make sure that we're both on the same page and where we can really say these kinds of things out loud in the room and the professional can answer these for us, and kind of dig deeper to where that might be coming from if it is coming from a deeper place. But I think it's natural to have a question like this on one's mind when entering into adoption. Unless they just always said, adoption was always on my heart. I grew up I couldn't wait to adopt.
Right.
God will plant that seed in people's hearts sometimes too from a young age.
I think too, if you're relating to this question and you're listening right now, you might even think back to the times when you have babysat for a really close friend or for your, you've watched your niece or nephew or a neighbor's child. It does not take long to care about that child, even when you're just nurturing and loving on them for a couple hours. Honestly, some of you who already have kids, you might even attest to the truth that sometimes it's harder to keep loving a child that you've already put time into because they don't always, smell great or act right or say the nicest things. And so every season of parenthood comes with that commitment, and that commitment, that action is what brings that love and that bond. But also what I thought of too is that it's really important, and you'll learn some of this through your home study process, but when you learn about bonding with a child that you adopt, you also need to have reasonable expectations. This is true even if you were to get pregnant. I have a friend who has 4 children. 3 of them were totally planned. The last one, it's not like he wasn't planned. It's just probably came at a more of a surprise than the others. But she had a different kind of vision or expectation for those first 3 of how quickly she'd bond or how much she could visualize that child coming home. And then when that 4th one came, she told me, until I was actually taking him home from the hospital, I never had that vision of bringing him home from the hospital like I did with the first 3. So even though she gave birth with the same husband and had done this 3 times before, she had a completely different experience as this baby's new mama. And so I think being able to ask yourself, what am I expecting of myself? And maybe what kind of things have you expected? Maybe you've never raised a newborn before, or you've never raised children before. You might even just assume, oh, there's this immediate instant bond just because someone gives birth to a child. But that is not always the case. There's many testimonies of women who actually go to support groups to say, I just gave birth. Why don't I feel this like instant connection? And it's just because some people, babies are their own personalities. You're your own personality. There's different circumstances that get involved when a new child enters the family, whether through adoption or biologically. And if it is something to be concerned about, counseling is definitely a great suggestion. But I think also to just take a little bit of pressure off of yourself. But also, I will just say, from years of helping families through this kind of process, is that this question may also come out of this transition of moving from infertility to adoption. So if you've started to open your heart up to adopting a child, and I'll just say this from a Christian point of view, the devil is going to start challenging that and say, well, but you'll never love a child like you would if you gave birth. Or just your own fears will come into play the more steps you take towards that dream. So just kind of take a step back, have a little grace with yourself, ask yourself, where's this coming from? And then, like you said, Kim, allow the testimonies, allow God to show you what he sees, but go listen to other adoptive parent testimonies, because usually that question does come up for them and they are more than happy to share their truth about that. In fact, Kim, what you just said about the day-to-day, and suddenly you realize you're not just babysitting and this is your baby and you're in charge, and it's about you. Now you're a parent. Reminded me of a story we hosted, I think it was last year, Adele, and she actually has a story. I don't know that she got into it in the webinar, but I remember talking with her, and she said that there was this moment of, she had watched nieces and nephews. She had watched babies and children all the years that she had longed to become a mom. She had babysat and soaked up that time with babies and with young children to sort of fill that need and that void in her life. But that at the same time in her head, she would always think, well, I'm rocking this baby to sleep right now, but in 2 hours, their mama will be here and I can go finish the dishes and clean up the house and get back to normal. And she remembered having this moment where they had a fussy little newborn. He cried a lot. Nothing was wrong with him, but some babies are fussier than others. And she remembered having this moment where she was rocking him and trying to soothe him and comfort him, where she was thinking, well, he will go home soon and I will be able to catch up on the laundry and some of the chores. And then it occurred to her, like, this baby's not leaving. It was kind of in that moment she realized, I'm a mom now. And it gives me chills to think of, because it's those real life things. I think that there may be elements of this question that, like you started out saying, Kim, that won't totally be proven wrong, or you won't find the exact truth in that until you personally experience what that's like after you adopt. But if you have any concerns, I will say, so there's a great question that came up about home studies, and we definitely want to talk about that tonight. But part of what you go through with a home study is also just classes, learning about newborn care, parenting, certainly about adoptive parenting as it comes with its own unique elements. But these are even things that you can feel free to ask your home study caseworker and to say, what is it like? Is there any difference? And ask them what to expect. And they may walk you through some things, or they may suggest some really great books or some podcasts or something like that that helps you learn a little bit more, so that if you feel like you need a little bit more preparation for your heart as you wait for that moment when you find out that, yes, you will absolutely love and adore the child you adopt, that home study provider may have even more help for you.
Libby, I feel like I should add to my personal experience having a pregnancy and a baby at the hospital. Things started happening so quickly. I think adoptive parents experience this too, where things just happen so quickly. You have this adrenaline rush. It's very surreal. Like everything that you've been planning for and expecting and hoping for and dreaming of is happening, and it can be very surreal in those moments. And where you may not feel that instantaneous connection with this baby. And I have to say, I did not feel that instantaneous connection with my daughter. It came over time. A short period of time later, I did feel that bond with her. But at first, it was like it was so surreal.
Like a stranger.
And she was,
yeah.
Yes, like a little stranger came into my life, and she was entirely her own person. She was not an extension of me. She was her own person, and it was my responsibility to figure out how to understand her language and meet all her needs. And so it was not an instantaneous bond. So if you're kind of questioning, just know that that kind of concern, fear, or experience can happen, whether biological or through adoption. But I think it is more a part of the equation kind of mentally when we are just kind of in our heads wondering, am I going to love this child the same?
Yes.
Give it time. Keep walking forward through the steps, and you will have your moment where it will click. And you will say, look, we are really great partners, baby and I. And I know her cries. I know his cries. We have our routine, and we are doing life together, and it is awesome. And we are mom and child. We are father and child now.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that, Kim. There was a great question or comment actually that popped up. Thank you, Ashley. And she's an actively waiting family that says, yes, the classes and paperwork were heavy during the home study, but our interviews with our home study provider was a great time to ask questions and express any insecurities, etc. So I have heard from numerous home study providers that they actually appreciate when adoptive parents take advantage of them, because they're walking around with a head full and an office full of resources and answers and experience, but they're not going to know what to give you unless you speak up and utilize them. So they're really there. So let's talk a little bit. There was a question that said, what all is involved in a home study process? And we'll just kind of give you the umbrella view, the landscape view of that, just not going down into details, because that could be its own webinar all itself. And then asking, how long is the home study good before it expires? So let's talk just a little bit in general about what a home study is, because then we also have a couple other questions that tie into how to take advantage of this opportunity with a home study provider. So Kim, what's your elevator speech when someone asks, what's a home study? What should I expect?
So a home study is designed to ensure that a family who is welcoming a non-biologically related child into their family, especially in private adoption where you did not have a pre-existing relationship, that all is safe in the home, it's healthy, it's an appropriate place for a child, that there's nothing that would endanger a child. And that the reasons for adoption are healthy. So that's why they interview adoptive parents about, reasons for adopting and fears and concerns. So it involves also, so the interviews, a look around the home. They're not trying to scrutinize every belonging that you own, although many of us are owning fewer belongings than ever before, thanks to the KonMari method. But
You're funny.
They are looking around to make sure that chemicals like any medications and cleaning supplies are stowed properly. Any weapons in the home are stored properly according to state requirements, and every state does have different requirements. They're also doing background checks to make sure there's nothing that would endanger a child, that there was never a case of child abuse or neglect, or nothing recent that would endanger a child. and also a physical at your doctor. You'll make an appointment and get an approval from your doctor that you do have a normal life expectancy and can physically meet the needs of a child when you adopt. So the doctor will either fill out a form or write a letter, and that will be included in your home study. So it's basically just creating a description of what your life is like and ensuring that it's all safe for that child to come home to. And the home study process takes about 6 to 8 weeks to complete because it is comprised of a couple different meetings and waiting for background checks to return and getting the physician's approval and everything. As far as updates, usually people update at around the 1-year mark if they are still in the adoption process. I know for Lifetime's program, we always require all background checks for your adoption to be under a year old while you're working with us. So there's always going to be something to update, and you can talk with your home study provider, let them know, hey, we're working with Lifetime and they require these backgrounds updated. If we reach that 1-year mark, then of course they'll let you know how that would work. And the home study provider will guide you through everything. Now, if you're working with Lifetime as a contracted Lifetime family, we do provide referrals for home study providers that can help you in your state. It's going to be state specific. You will choose to hire that home study provider, and you'll pay them directly for that, and they can let you know their specific fee. Although home studies usually range between $1,000 and $3,000 total. You can also ask us specifically, in an email or conversation, if you are in a certain state, you want to know, does it fit within the normal range, and we can give our insight.
Yeah, that's a good thing to know too. Is that you don't have to complete a home study before you start up with Lifetime either. In fact, you may even get a little bit more specific guidance if you wait to contract and then let your coordinator give you some recommendations on where to begin that and who to help you complete it, because we have worked with families before that spent the time and energy and the resources to complete a home study only to find out it's not valid for the type of adoption they're pursuing with Lifetime. So it is good to kind of take that step by step too. I think I usually hear from adoptive parents that they get really nervous about having that home visit and having someone come into your home and ask you these questions and look around your space. But then by the time that visit is done, they feel like they're friends with their caseworker and like it was much more casual and relaxed and enjoyable than they anticipated. I've even heard from seasoned parents that, maybe you already have been raising 1 or 2 children biologically and you've never adopted. And then they come to adoption and they say, I wish that we would have had to do this before we had our firstborn, that there's things that you just learn and get to think about and prepare for through the home study process that will benefit you as a future parent, just in general too. But it's definitely good whenever you're talking with a home study provider to ask them, and how long is this good for? And because every once in a while, I think there's still a handful that are maybe 6 months, but on average, what I hear is most of them need to be updated yearly. And we need them updated yearly here at Lifetime because you never know what state you could be adopting from too. That's the ticket. That's the reason why we say yearly, is because some states are yearly, some might be a little bit longer, but you want to make sure you qualify for any adoption in any state. Kim, you mentioned some things like, I will say there are some times when you may hear from Kim or from one of us at Lifetime that it would be wise for you to talk with a home study provider before you get too far ahead with Lifetime, just because every state does vary, and we may need for you to find out if there is some reason why you would not become home study approved, because we would hate to welcome you into our program and we're not home study experts, we're not attorneys, and certainly we aren't able to keep detailed account and experience for every single law in every single state. But your home study provider in your area can. And so there may be things like this question that came up, and this may be further, maybe not as many people can relate to this, but there are other health issues that do come up. But the question, Kim, you and I usually get these on every webinar we do is, how old how old is too old to adopt? So this question was great because she said, I'm 51. Is that too old? I also have HIV. Can I adopt? And, the reason why we wanted to include this question is because whether it's something like HIV or even just diabetes or asthma, or if you're on depression medicine, or maybe you are on disability because you had a back injury, and so in general your health is fine. It's just that you can't sustain an 8 or 9 hour workday on your feet or sitting down at a desk all day. For whatever reason, there are different questions we get like this time to time, and so these may be some of the circumstances where we may say, we don't know the answer to that. So you may want to find out with a home study provider to just check if that would hinder you at all. But Kim, in your experience, how would you answer if this person reached out to you, you got an email from them and said, hey, before I apply, I'm 51, I have a health issue, whatever that may be, can I still adopt? What would you tell that family?
So usually the physician does have to, of course, a physician always has to clear a family for adoption. And what they're looking at is your ability to care for that child's needs. If you have any sort of disability, such as, let's say, you're in a wheelchair or you are legally blind, how do you get around and accommodate that? Do you pull in extra help? Like, what is your plan for making sure that child's needs can be met? And for most people with these kinds of situations, they can totally care for a child. We've had adoptive families in our program where, a dad is going to be a stay-at-home dad, and he is a paraplegic, and he's able to care for that child.
Mm-hmm.
Or that we had a legally blind adoptive parent. And not only could they legally adopt, but they were chosen by, they were able to adopt. So, and have completed their adoption. As far as something specific like HIV, I know that really does stand out in people's minds. It's not something that even today people talk about quite openly. There have been so many advancements and treatment, and I know people who live long and healthy lives, very active, and with the treatment, prescriptions and everything. So it's a private conversation for you to have with your physician to get that approval, and then for that home study provider to see that you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's. If you have a disability, you have either the ability to care for the child nonetheless, or you have a plan to accommodate where you may not be able to meet that need yourself, like pulling in a nanny or something like that, or family support that may be around you that means you're not on your own, but that your mom lives across the street or whatever it may be. So I think just life expectancy is what they're looking for. So someone who is currently battling cancer, battling a terminal illness, then there are requirements for once they get a clean bill of health, once they're in remission, how much time has to go by, and that could be like 3 years or 5 years. I wouldn't say throw in the towel right now, just if that's kind of something recent in your life, because I have had families that are cleared for a home study and not much time has gone by since they were given a clean bill of health. But take the time to make some calls to some home study providers in your area and see if whatever is on your mind is a concern and could possibly stop you, or if they would say maybe, I've helped a few other families with that same thing, and here's what we did, and we were able to get them home study approved.
Yeah.
So just get questions answered by a home study provider. If the question is, can I adopt if ... and it's a medical thing, or if it's a criminal background thing, you really need to talk to a home study provider in your state about that specifically.
Right.
I will also add to that, most people do have a concern, and sometimes it can be, we have a swimming pool, we have a dog, we have a child already, we're young, we're old, somewhere anywhere in between. Everyone has that little thing on their mind that they think is going to stop them. Most of those things don't stop people from adopting.
Right. We've even helped families, that didn't, like another one we get is, does my educational background need to be at a certain level? No.
Or home ownership.
Or financial status.
Yeah, right.
The bottom line is the state wants to make sure that, number one, you're not going to depend on the state to take care of a child you're adopting. So if you're intentionally adopting a child, that they know you are going to be there for bringing that child into adulthood, and that you're going to be healthy emotionally and physically, and that you'll have enough financial means to cover your cost of living where you live. So that number could even vary depending on what state you live. For example, in Southern California, those families may have home study providers that have sort of, maybe a higher minimum compared to, say, families in Mississippi or something like that. Just because the cost of living in some states is much higher than others. So, a good example for that's kind of the rare and few between, is that when I get a call from people and they say, I'm unemployed, I'm single, and, I live with my mother, but she's on disability, and I only get like $600 a month or something like that through SSI. It may be pretty hard for someone in a circumstance like that, where their financial means are so limiting just for them to take care of themselves, let alone adding a child to their mix. There may be things like that your state says, no, that doesn't meet our minimum requirements. But an average family who, we work with stay-at-home parents, we work with work-from-home families. There are different requirements in different areas, but usually, like you said, Kim, the ... the what if this, it's usually not a big deal.
And also, I like what you may not have realized you chose these words, but it's what the state is requiring.
Right.
So if you're calling an agency and they're saying, oh, well, we have this requirement and we're not going to give you a home study unless you meet this requirement. Next question should be, is that a state requirement, or is that specifically your agency's requirements? Could there be other places that don't have that requirement? Mm-hmm. And get second and third opinions too if you are told no on something.
Yeah, that's really good, because a couple questions I've seen come up here in the questions box is, and I know this came up earlier before, is about having biological children already. There are a lot of people, if you have 2 or more biological children in the family, but you really want to adopt a newborn, is that possible? And then another family said, would we be less likely to be approved if we do already have biological children? So that's one of the things you reminded me of, Kim. So there may be some agencies, some attorneys or adoption programs, adoption centers, that some of them may say, we do not accept people into our program who already have biological children. That's not to say you shouldn't go on to adopt, or that they think you'd be horrible adoptive parents. That's just based on who they're helping. Those are their agency or center or professional requirements. Other places, like here at Lifetime, we work with a mix of families. Some have adopted before. Some are going to be first-time parents. Some have gone through infertility. Others just feel strongly that they are called to adopt. And some come to us as a blended family. Each maybe there's biological children on one spouse's side, or maybe you each brought biological children into your marriage, or you had biological children together and you want to grow your family. There are, it's just across the gamut, the possibilities, and we don't say no or yes to a family's application based on just one checkbox in particular like that. We're really looking at your application as a whole. I feel like it's probably a little bit, maybe too much information to go into, how we're looking at what your family makeup is already. But the bottom line is, we want you to be successful in our program. And, a good example is, sometimes we have very large families, like that have 6 or 8 children. And they come to us and say, we want to adopt, we want to keep growing our family. That is amazing. Like, that's just amazing that you are called to be a blessing for another child or multiple children. But we have to also be honest and tell you that a lot of the women on the birth mother's side, when they're looking for adoptive parents, they may feel more inclined to choose a family where they may believe or perceive that their baby could get more attention, your undivided attention, from a family that's maybe going to be first-time parents, or maybe they're just working on their second, third, or maybe fourth child. So does that make sense, Kim?
Yeah, and it also goes deeper than just family ties. Well, if a family presents themselves to us and says, "Hey, we have 6 children, and we feel called to adopt. We have some important reasons why we want to keep
True.
adopting.
That's really, yeah.
We have secondary infertility. We had 3 biological children. They're all older. We adopted a sibling group,
Mm-hmm.
and we adopted interracially. Now we specifically want to adopt interracially again. We feel like that would be a really good fit for our family. Well, a birth mom who's seeking a family that has multiple races in the home, that might be a really good fit for her. And she can clearly see, wow, there's a stay-at-home mom who really doesn't stay at home much.
Right.
Because she's very active. Stay-at-home moms don't really stay home anymore.
You're right.
Kind of funny. It's like a misnomer. But yeah, she can kind of see their faith and family values, and just imagine how much attention her child is going to get. Now, I will say, when we have accepted families that are a little larger, we try to make sure that their youngest is a little older, so not younger than a year, because like Libby was saying, birth moms are very concerned about their child getting the attention, there being enough to go around. But if we can paint her a picture of you, showing how much love you have to give, whether this is your first child, your fourth child, or beyond, then she will feel that connection. A birth mother will feel that connection. Now,
True.
I will
Yes.
say, if you have a factor like a larger family, very important to have more open preferences as much as you can. Just like, let's say that there's a family that this will be their first baby, but they have a very specific race preference. Then very important for them to think about how else they can broaden the rest of their preferences in other ways to kind of create that balance. And that's what we are talking about when we say we're looking at the whole picture.
Right.
It's not just one characteristic. Now, certainly if someone is 80 years old wishing to adopt, can they still adopt? Possibly. Most likely not through Lifetime, but maybe like through their local county social services, something like that. We really need families. Maybe they can parent or mentor or something like that, especially if they are a spry 80 years old, 70 years old.
Yeah.
I would say.
I mean, that's pretty rare, but yeah.
Yeah. I do, Libby. I get calls like that.
Oh, I know. I know.
Get the calls. And we have to say, the reality is we just don't have birth moms looking for a family like this, but you should call your local.
Or,
this early 50s, certainly, yes.
Yes. Well, and we just got another question. I'm 48. Is there a maximum age? Again, no, there's no particular age range. I will say, if you're on the younger side, most states want you to be over 21, I believe. So there's maybe a minimum, but we've
unless your spouse is 25. It's like Monopoly rules.
It can a little, but this is kind of in that area where other questions like, can I adopt? I want to adopt twins specifically, or I want to adopt a boy or a girl specifically, or my husband and I, we're on our second marriages, and he has 3 children, I have 2, so together we have 5, but we only have 2 of them every other week, and they don't always live with you full time. There's all kinds of this. Everyone has different circumstances. And Kim, as you were saying that, I mean, immediately why the figure 6 or 8 children came to mind was because I remember helping a family with 8 children, and they were young. But they had that same thing where they had adopted previously, adopted siblings through foster care, and they were just feeling called to open adoption and wanted to keep growing their family. And the thing is, just like, if you're a single woman and you're listening right now and you're thinking, do you work with singles? Would I have any chance of success? We look at all of our families and try and have a true variety. So we don't have, say, 50 families going out to one birth mother who all have 5 children. That there's going to be a mix for her to see, oh, this family, I love big families. I just saw 2 families on your website with, multiple children. And then there may be other birth mothers who say, I really want my child to be the firstborn or maybe the secondborn. or maybe you live in the country or you live in the city or you have a stay-at-home mom or you're a teacher, or there's all kinds of all these little check marks that make up you as an individual. And so that's what we mean when we're looking at that big picture also, is that we're not just working with one type of family, but that we're giving the women who call us a true choice, so that you also have a chance of standing out as a unique family that you are.
And we actually just got a photo update from one of our single adoptive moms.
Yes.
A newborn baby photo, and she adopted within the average match time. I think it was around 18 months-ish. We're estimating. I don't know. I didn't go into her file and count the months. But she started off in our payment plan, activated, and she's got her baby boy in her arms. So, and she's a single adoptive mom. And what we do is when we have certain characteristics, like a single adoptive mom, we only assist a small number within certain kind of demographics at a time, so that, for example, this adoptive mom who's already with us, that she would have a high possibility of being successful in a timely manner, that it's realistic and logical to think she could adopt in a timely manner and just not open the floodgates for just any families of any characteristics. But when we offer an opening, it's because we do have an opening in our program for you based on your adoption needs, as well as for adoption circumstances and family characteristics, and based on our feeling that we could have a successful partnership in general and guide you through to a successful adoption, that you have what birth moms are looking for, and that you're open to the birth moms that we're seeing. So it's got to be that whole picture. And,
right.
Yeah, I don't want
So
to go into that much detail, but I think people want to know.
I think I kind of want to pause here, because I know there's some people listening right now that may be thinking, well, what do you mean be chosen by a birth parent? What? How does this work? So at Lifetime, at Lifetime, we are working with open adoption, which means, a lot of people, when you say open adoption, they just think of maybe sharing letters or photos after the adoption. But open adoption in its full essence simply means you know where your baby came from, and that birth mother knows who adopted her baby. So everything from there is different adoption to adoption. So like this weekend, I spoke with a woman. She actually placed a baby for adoption a few years ago with a different agency. Now she's pregnant again and looking to place this baby. She's actually due at the end of the month, but she, she said, I don't have I don't have an open adoption with my other child, and I don't really want that. But my follow-up question to her was, do you want to choose the adoptive parents? And she immediately said yes. I said, do you want to talk with them before you give birth or before the adoption takes place? She said, yes, I would like to talk with them. So she wants the peace of mind of knowing, I chose these people, I know who they are, I know where my baby went. But she's the type of woman who doesn't feel interested in this point in having photos or updates or ongoing communication once the adoption takes place. But there may be other women who say, yes, I want to say in every single part of it, and I want to know how my baby is doing after the adoption happens, and get letters and photos. So open adoption to us is, I'm just seeing it more and more. It's just so personal. It's such a personal relationship that's happening, and it can feel a little strange when you're just starting to research adoption. But if you think of it, kind of going back to what you said earlier, Kim, about when you met your spouse, you also got to know his family at a pace. Not everything was thrown at you, but now there's all these people in your life, and even though you're not in touch with them all the time, you know who they are and you care about them. And so you will find the same thing happens as you get to know the one woman who chooses you to adopt her baby, and that you will care what happens to her, and you will wonder what she's up to just as much as she would like to see photos of baby's first step or know how you're all doing. And so just to kind of reassure all of you who are hoping to adopt, a woman's desire, a mother's desire to have ongoing contact and get those updates of her baby is not her saying, I don't trust you, I need to check up on you. She is actually saying, I completely trust you, and I care about this baby that I've entrusted to you, and I just want to be part of the story still. She doesn't want to be forgotten, and she wants to be able to um, know how you're doing as the adoptive parents as well, because she's also now taken the time to get to know you personally. And so there's usually this friendship that just kind of evolves naturally out of the steps that happen before the adoption.
Libby, I think for most adoptive parents who are concerned about open adoption, that's natural because there are so many myths. And we have plenty of resources. Email me if you're concerned about open adoption and you're open to learning a little more. Send me an email requesting open adoption info and include your questions or concerns and be bold about it. You know, I'm used to fielding these kinds of questions and concerns, so be bold so that I can get you the information that you can weigh the pros and cons and see if open adoption is the right fit for you, or at least know what you're saying no to and know what you're saying yes to.
Yeah.
My email is Kim, Kim, at LifetimeAdoption.com. You can put open adoption in the subject line if you'd like. Let me know your name and what state you're from, please, so that I can guide you and know who you are. But also, I think when I'm talking with families that have some hesitations about open adoption, usually once we start talking about a birth mother's intentions, it really helps ease their mind, because these are not women that are trying to destroy a family. These are not women that want their child caught between two families. They don't want to share in the parents. But what brings them to adoption? Often adoptive parents ask me this question: where do these babies come from? How do you find your birth mothers? Is the question that they'll ask.
So, you know, it's kind of like going back to the beginning of the webinar when Kim rattled off all the different ways that you can contact us. There are so many ways that women reach out to us for more information, and they're hearing about us online. They're hearing about us from doctors or nurses or pregnancy centers. They're hearing about us sometimes just from friends who have adopted before. Maybe they worked with Lifetime before. They are hearing about us from brochures, we have an app, we have an open adoption app. Sometimes they're
it started with a question on their heart.
Yes.
They reached out for some help, and someone pointed them in the direction of Lifetime and said, here's an option to consider. And then we came to the picture. She invited us into her adoption planning. She reached out to us. She initiated this. We don't go approaching women. We don't tell women we think they should choose adoption. That's totally up to them. And they are propelling themselves forward. They are self-motivated as they are completing these adoptions, because what they are able to provide for that child, and I'm not just talking about materially, but the life they're able to provide, the family, the parents they're able to provide, doesn't measure up to what they want their child to have. And so they're looking for that in you.
There's so many reasons that women choose adoption too. It's not just one. It's not just one circumstance. And Kim, maybe that's something we need to do soon. Is kind of, we've done it before, but maybe tackle some of the really common myths about adoption today from the adoptive parent's point of view, because I do think that some of the lack of understanding stems from, we are just now in an era when people are starting to talk about open adoption from a personal testimony, not just what it could look like or what it is like with a 5-year-old. But now we have people who have children who are fully grown who have open adoptions, and they're sharing their testimonies, and they are helping the rest of us learn, okay, yeah, we were on the right track, that now we have children that benefit from understanding their birth history and having access to family medical records. And we have children that were also raised knowing that adoption was something to be proud of, not a secret to discover on your mother's deathbed when you're 40 years old. So open adoption has just totally changed what adoption can look like for all parties involved. And adoptive parents really appreciate the opportunity to have some of those logistics, like just some of the answers they know their child will ask, or that will come up as they're taking their child to a pediatrician, that there may be family medical history that in the past adoptive parents just had to write, I don't know, we adopted. But now you can go back on that paperwork that child's birth mother wanted you to have. I will just say right now, the majority of the women that we help, the mothers that we help, they take the paperwork very seriously because they know that they're laying a foundation for their baby's future just by the answers they're completing in that very first step to get to know you. So you will get details and information in there that will help you as you raise your child. But also what's cool is that if you do keep in touch with that child's birth mother, and I say if based on whether or not she wants you to continue contact or whether or not she maintains her contact information that you can still use. I will just say as a side note, it is always wrong to just bait and switch a birth mother and tell her, oh yeah, we'll share updates and then drop your promise. That's contributing to the negative stereotypes. So I will tell all of you right now, learn on the front end what to expect so that you don't get swept up in fears after you adopt, that you're really prepared to embrace the beautiful potential that comes with it and know how to do it safely. So that you feel secure raising that child too. But that you get this opportunity even in the future. Like, Kim, if I have a baby and I choose you to adopt her, that maybe 10 years down the road I will still be in touch with you and I will say, hey, I just found out my mom had breast cancer. She got breast cancer last year and she's going through treatment, or, whatever that may be. Or maybe I just found out my grandmother has pancreatic cancer or something like that, that I now as a birth mother can tell my child's adoptive parents, hey, add this to the list of, biological medical history. So.
Right. Or say birth mom is in perfect health at 22 years old, but by the time she's 32, she has a thyroid problem.
Right.
Things develop over time. Really good to have that access to that information if it can be at all maintained. And what a wonderful gift to provide for your child, to not have your child have to go on a search that could end in any number of ways. Nothing could end in lack of information. It could end in a rejection. It could end in too much, way more than what they wanted. But if you have had that connection with her all along from the beginning, you're in control. The connection is mainly amongst the adults, all within the healthy boundaries that we teach you through our program. And I think, too, working with Lifetime, you will know that the birth mother of your child has received plenty of information, support, was guided through making an adoption plan that she felt confident about. That is a strong foundation to even have the idea of open adoption. Without that, it's a can of worms. But when you have that, such as within Lifetime's program, you know that birth mother has that support. From her very first contact with us, that 24/7 support, she can reach out and talk to someone and get the help she needs from her first contact anytime on into the future, even after the adoption. That's huge. That makes all the difference. One, that means that's not on your shoulders. But two, she made a sound decision with full support, eyes wide open as much as she can be in a stressful situation, and she chose a plan that she felt confident about. So she's not likely to be someone that's going to try and disrupt a family. I have a saying on top of my computer that I look at all the time, and it says, a birth mother puts the needs of her child before the wants of her heart. And when we can contemplate that and really understand that, I think it really helps us feel much more confident in knowing why she would want open adoption and wanting to have that with her.
Right. Well, it's just, being able to know it's not goodbye forever, like the old days where you just know a child is out there somewhere, but being able to say, maybe even have on the lock screen of her phone, like, this is my child's kindergarten photo. And she knows that her child is thriving and she's glad for that. She will probably thank you as much as you wish you could find the right way to thank her for everything that you're doing. I just had a conversation with a friend the other day that I said, I think one of the hardest things, not even hardest. One of the areas that I truly wish that we could understand as just a culture with modern day adoption is that no longer is it just about rescuing a child. It's building families. It's being there for that child's birth mother as much as you are for the child. So you are becoming a solution to her. You're becoming an answer to something that she never imagined going through, and it turns into a positive thing. So, and it's healthy. Again, like Kim said, we have private webinars that aren't even accessible to the public, that we walk through different topics and answer deeper questions, and have even sometimes birth mother testimonies and other guests come on who are not comfortable sharing on a public platform, but they're willing to educate and share their testimony with our contracted audience. And all of these resources really kind of walk you through. But the reason I also brought up the word safely, a safe open adoption, is because you also don't want to feel like you're just at the mercy of whatever, and that like you said, Kim, you need to have a little bit of control, and that you're working with qualified professionals to help complete the adoption, but that you're also working with professionals that have educated and prepared that birth mother so that she also knows what open adoption looks like, what's a reasonable expectation. For example, and I know we're going over here a little, so I'll try and keep it short, but every once in a while we'll get a call from a woman that says, yes, I want to learn about adoption. I've heard about open adoption. Can I see my baby every other weekend? And that is a cue for us to educate her about, okay, that sounds more like you just need help with babysitting and not so much that you're looking for a permanent adoption plan, and to really back up and explain to her what adoption looks like, and that yes, while there are families who are willing to keep in touch or maybe even get together once a year in person, it's not a joint custody arrangement. It's not a co-parenting arrangement. And so for some women, they may just say, oh, that makes complete sense. I was actually kind of concerned about what that would look like for the child, and being confusing if I was constantly, in their life or helping to take care of them. For other women, they might say, adoption's not right for me. And that's okay. That is okay. She can find the help or the resources in her community that will get her the plan she feels is right. But it's all taking that opportunity to educate her, to give her some counseling, to let her talk with other women who have chosen adoption so she can decide for herself. Because what the education on that front end with that birth mother is doing is it means by the time you're invited into a match with her, when she says, will you adopt my baby? She is less likely to change her mind at the last minute or to look back with regret and wish things had gone differently. Instead, she will feel totally equipped and prepared. And most of the time, adopted parents are really surprised and blessed to hear how grateful their child's birth mother truly is for them, and how glad she is for the decision she made. So I hope that helps some of you, because I know that question didn't really come up, but we were kind of talking about how families are chosen, and how we're looking at applications as a whole based on what birth mothers are looking for. But I do think it helps to understand that what we're trying to do is give her a choice in who adopts her baby, because it's that choice right there that it's going to give her the lasting peace about her decision, rather than feeling like she just had limited options and made a desperate decision. So I hope that was helpful. There's some questions. Really quick, there was a really good question that says, our workplace offers legal counseling, and it sounded maybe like there was even some adoption attorneys as part of that prepaid legal. And I was starting to type back, but I think I will just mention this. We strongly recommend that you, whenever it comes to your adoption, that you make sure you are working with adoption attorneys who are familiar with the type of adoption you're completing. Some adoption attorneys are only familiar with maybe local adoptions, like in your own county. Some may be familiar with interstate, where you're adopting a child from out of state and bringing them home to your home state. Some may only be familiar with stepchildren adoptions, or maybe they work more in the foster system. So you really want to make sure that whoever is doing that legal work with your adoption is familiar with the type of adoption you are completing. And we usually always have recommendations of who we have worked with to help your adoption process be smooth. So I would say, if you have legal counsel or prepaid law already through your work, it may be a good sort of springboard to bounce some general questions off of, but you may want to wait and find out, where does my child's birth mother live? What will the legal needs of my specific adoption be before you go, oh, we've got legal taken care of, because your adoption may require a lot more than what is just coming with prepaid lawyers. That's just a very general answer to that, but I just wanted to emphasize the importance. Do not take shortcuts with your adoption law, with any of the legal needs required for your adoption at all.
Oh, and by the way, Libby, when people fill out their application on our website, the link is lifetimeadoption.com/apply. Feel free to fill that out. Like I said in the very beginning, there is no obligation with that. So fill that out. It should take you under 20 minutes. When that application is pre-approved to move forward to the next step, we're going to offer you a phone conference so that we can dig a little deeper, find out a little bit more about what child would be a great fit for your family, and answer more questions based on your employer benefits or your experience with adoption. Is this going to be the same? Or, you're moving soon, or you're in the military, or all kinds of other questions that might really pertain more to your specific circumstances. We will definitely get those answered for you during that phone conference and beyond. You can always call and email or text us and get questions answered, but it is more, it's easier for us to answer your question when you've already filled out the application, so we can see the whole picture.
Mm-hmm. And again, the application doesn't obligate you to anything. In fact, it will allow us to more specifically answer your questions. So we know there's always more to the story than just a general question can get to. And so that's why Kim offered her email earlier, but also that if you do apply, and you find out that Lifetime's not the right program for you, that is not to say that you will never adopt. That is to say, be thankful that you've weeded an option out so that you know what to look for next. But if your application is approved, even moving to that next step, it's still all exploratory. You're still learning more about how Lifetime works. There's no specific time frame in which you have to, pull the trigger and move forward. But we are all about just making sure you feel as prepared as possible, just like we're doing with the birth mother side of things, because we want you to look back and know that this was the path you were meant to take to build your family, and to not feel as though you were misinformed or that you wish you had done things differently, that you really feel like you were called to this path and that this is the right direction to reach your dream. There were some other questions that came up, but Kim, if you want to keep rocking and rolling, we can. But I was just going to say that
I know that we do need to wrap things up here. But
yeah,
I want to share. I hope families can see that how passionate we are in making sure birth moms are well informed, so they move forward with as few regrets as possible. That they are fully supported in their decisions and their plan, and look back and really feel that they made the best decision and chose the best family and did the best they could for their baby. We want that same. You're just as passionate about helping you grow your family, become a mom and dad, have a child together for the first time, overcome what you have been through infertility and loss, or loss of a child, either a child that was born or a miscarriage. That you can move forward and find fresh hope in this adoption plan. And that's what we want for you, just as much as we want birth moms to make a plan they are confident with. So I hope you can see that we provide services for both sides of the equation, all coming together for the better future of this child.
Absolutely. If you need more webinar goodness, go over to adoptionwebinar.com. You can keep hearing our voices. But if you want some one-on-one help, please do reach out. The great thing is a lot of times we host these webinars on Thursdays, but it's only Tuesday. So you have the rest of the week to connect with someone here at Lifetime and get some more information just to help you keep checking those questions off. So if any topic, even if you're listening right now and you are already a Lifetime family in waiting, same goes for you. Remember, if you have a question, ask it so that you get the information you need and you're not looking back 6 months from now and wishing you'd ask something sooner, or you're faced with feeling as though you're moving forward on a match and you're not adequately prepared because you never spoke up. Really understand what the process you're moving through, whether you are just starting or whether you are just moving through the next phase in your adoption. We are here to help, and our team is always happy to just answer questions and help keep you on track and moving things forward too. So keep in touch. The recording of tonight's webinar will be up in adoptionwebinar.com, and we'll post that to social media as soon as it's available from our web team. And then some of these leftover questions have left me kind of thinking we may need specific webinars just about some of these topics, Kim. So I really want to...
I feel like we just scratched the surface
well,
tonight.
I knew that would happen. That's you and I. We can fill an hour pretty good. But definitely want to thank all of you who took the time to ask questions and to submit questions beforehand, because this is really helpful. And when we know what's on your mind, it allows us even more so to tackle these in specific webinars or with articles or different resources, or to reach out to you directly and make sure that you have clarity. So keep in touch. Let us know how we can help, and we'll talk with you again soon.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. And we are very blessed to have had this information to share with you and the opportunity. So I hope you have a great rest of your night, and we'll be praying for you to find the right direction in your next step.
Beautiful. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.